population ecology. Okay, so first thing you need to know, humans don't act like any other populations in the entire world, right? So no other animals, no other thing on Earth has a population that acts like the human population. We can say the human populations are unique from all other populations. So yesterday we learned about how normal populations reach carrying capacity, and that is that they have density-dependent factors, and as their population density increases, those density-dependent factors tend to be more and more and more impactful, and then that causes them to reach carrying capacity. So we can say normal populations reach carrying capacity due to density-dependent factors. And that is absolutely not how humans work. So humans have two main things working for us. We got technology working for us, and we've got the global economy. And those things are going to lessen the impact of density-dependent factors to prevent us from reaching carrying capacity. So we can say the technology and the global economy lessen the impact of density dependent factors. So let's go through the density dependent factors and talk about how they do not apply to humans. So give me a density dependent factor. Any density dependent factor. Space. Why does space not apply?
We can build apartments so we can build even more space up high.
We go up, not out, right? So if we all lived in a flat area, there was no such thing as a second story, then we'd run out of space, right? But we don't do that. We build up. You know, sometimes we build really far up. If you look at like Dubai and stuff. So we can say building up, not out. That's going to maximize our space. Okay. What do we do if there's already a building there that's not tall enough? Knock it down and build a taller building. Right? Okay. What is another density dependent factor? Food and water. How do we negate this density dependent factor? Yeah.
More technology makes farming more efficient. And
Yep.
we have more like desalination to make non-usable water.
Yep. Farming, distillation, desalination. All those things. Okay, what about like global trade? It's one thing that's super important, and we talked about it already in this class. For production of food, yeah. GMOs. There is zero chance that we could produce enough crops to feed the world's population if we did not have genetically modified crops. And we're going to need more and more, and they're going to need to be better and better and better because we're running out of space, and we need to make more food in less area. Right? What else? It's another density dependent factor. What? Disease, yes. How do we stop that? Modern medicine. Now, the interesting thing about this is disease is not really going to affect the population growth rate unless we're targeting what age of people. Like, does it matter if I, cure my grandfather's prostate cancer who's 80 years old? Does that matter? No. So what's the only thing that matters? Young, reproductive age, and pre-reproductive age, right? So those are the ones where people used to die in those ages, and now they really don't die very much in those ages, and so we have a lot more birth rates based on the fact that there's more people in those ages. Once you get past reproductive age, like, it's cool that you get to live and all, but like, it doesn't matter as far as population growth goes, right? Okay, so what else? Yeah.
Could you also put sanitation with disease?
That's gonna go next, right? Because what's the other density dependent factor? Built up the toxic waste. And yeah, sanitation and sewers, sewage treatment plants, landfills, recycling. All those things have a really big impact on the fact that we can produce all this waste and it doesn't kill us, right? If we still had sewage flowing through the streets, we'd have a lot more disease, and that disease would probably kill us and control our population, but we don't do that. We have the sewage other places where we don't see it, right? So, that kind of negates all those density dependent factors that would normally give us carrying capacity. So where does human carrying capacity come from is the question. All right, so let's talk about it. Say that first of all, we know, because of the global economy, we know that human carrying capacity has to be calculated globally. And I'll just throw this out there just so we can all keep it, in the back of our heads. We don't really understand it very well. We don't understand how it works. We don't understand, like, if we're going to reach a point, like, we're at 7 billion now, but maybe when we reach 8 billion, there's going to be some catastrophic event or something. It's going to knock us back down to 3. Who knows, right? We can't foresee that. Okay, we'll say that human carrying capacity is not well understood. What we do understand about it is a concept that is called the ecological footprint. So we say that every person has an ecological footprint. And what that means is every single person, based on their activities, their daily activities, and what they do, what they eat, where they get their food, all these things. They're going to have a different ecological footprint. Okay, so the ecological footprint says how much land is required for you to grow all the food that you eat, right? Dispose of all the waste, produce all the power, right? How much land does that take? Okay, so this is the amount of land required to produce the food, clean water, power, and dispose of waste for a single person. And you can go online. There's lots of ecological footprint calculators. I just went online and did mine here. And it's hard to read, so I'll give you the Cliff's notes. Maybe I can make it bigger. Oh, that got huge. All right, so here we go. It says To support my lifestyle, it takes 22.7 global acres of the Earth's productive area. So the Earth's productive area, that doesn't include most of the oceans, right? And it says if everyone lived like me, I'd need 5.1 planet Earths to provide enough resources, right? Yeah, and I live a pretty not wasteful lifestyle. I ride my bike to school a lot,
A lot of
and
energy you got there.
what's that?
A lot of energy you got there.
Yeah. I don't know where all that comes from.
The games.
Yeah, it must be my computer. I don't know. But yeah, so that's crazy. 5.1. We don't have 5.1 Earths. What's up?
So what kind of questions they ask you?
It asks like how much meat do you eat? How much locally sourced food do you consume? What size is your house? How often do you drive? Things like that, right? So that's crazy, right? And the crazy thing is that is less than the average American. The average American is around 26 global acres per person.
So I guess the good part is that we have other countries that
Yeah, other countries don't take up nearly as many resources as us, so that's good, right? So we say that the average American uses around 10 hectares, which nobody knows what a hectare is, right? So a hectare is 10 hectares would be 100,000 meters squared of land in their global footprint. It's a lot. 100,000 meters squared. Right? That's a tremendous amount of land. So then we don't have 5.1 Earths, and so that means that we're in pretty bad shape. Some people say that the Earth's population is like 4 times over the size that it should be. We're like 4 times past carrying capacity, right? And even I've read a lot of different theories about it. Even the most conservative theory that I've ever read says the Earth is around 1.8 times past carrying capacity for humans. So we'll say that conservative estimates say the Earth is 1.8 times past human carrying capacity. Yeah.
Isn't carrying capacity for all organisms?
So it would be all organisms that share the same limiting resource. And since we don't really have a limiting resource, it gets confusing. But yes, I see what you're saying. So it's shared. And so the problem is that if we get to a limiting resource, there's a good chance that that limiting resource is also going to be the limiting resource for other organisms. And then those organisms are just going to die. Yeah, I'm okay. What's up?
So how have we been able to get to this point?
So technology and stuff. So we've got all this technology, and we keep coming out with new technologies that allow us to get a little bit more and a little bit more, and stop people dying a little bit more and a little bit more. And the theory is that we're going to continue to do this until there's a collapse, something terrible happens, something catastrophic happens, and then we're going to see one of those corrections. Did I talk about corrections yesterday? So whenever you have a graph, so we were talking about this graph here, okay? So at this point right here, there were an equal amount of predator and prey, and that can't happen. So what you have is right after that, you have a leveling out of the prey, but the predator drops down significantly, and they have this period where there's this massive fall in their population. And so anytime you have a graph that's not following the correct trend or not following a trend that should happen, directly afterwards, there's something called a correction, which is a drastic change that makes it move back to the trend. So if we talk about it in like non-population sense, this is like what always happens with like the tech boom and the housing bubble and all this stuff where like the economies go crazy for a while. So there was this housing bubble in like 2004, and all the houses were selling for like tremendously more than they should have, right? And then in 2006, the housing bubble burst, right? And they were like, here's where the houses should be, here's where they are, and so here's where they went, right? And they did that so that they could get back on trend because they were way, way too high, right? Same thing happened with like the tech boom, the dot-com boom and stuff like that, where everything just went crazy and then had to have a massive fall so that it could get back on trend. And that's what they think is going to happen to the human population, where you're going to have this thing that's going way off trend and then huge correction and then back onto trend. All right, so why does this happen? Why is the human population kind of growing crazy like this? Let's look at human population growth. Okay, and first I want to preface this by saying this is a tricky subject. It's a tricky subject to talk about, right? So humans value human life, right? More than any other life. It's just like ingrained in us. Okay. When I talk about like a species of rats or rabbits reaching carrying capacity, like they reach carrying capacity, which means like they have to have a birth rate that equals the death rate, right? And that means a lot of them are dying for various things, starvation, being eaten by other things. But like when we see humans dying, we're like, oh, that's horrible. We need to stop those humans from dying, right? But how can the birth rate ever equal the death rate if we keep lowering the death rate, right? So one of my favorite people in the world, Bill Gates. You guys like Bill Gates? You know who Bill Gates is? Okay. Yeah, so he made Microsoft, right? And then after he did that, he founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And among other things, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation wants to eradicate malaria. That's like their big thing. They want to vaccinate every person on Earth that would be at risk for malaria against malaria. Okay? Good for them. They're going to stop a lot of suffering, stop a lot of people from dying. But they're stopping people from dying. People that normally would die. And those populations where those people are dying right now, they're not decreasing. It's not like so many people are dying that it's not causing them to reproduce, right? They have a birth rate that's so high that their death rate is not stopping their population from growing. So what if we stop the death rate? Then what? Then it goes huge, right? Because they still reproduce because it's ingrained in their culture, ingrained in their society, right? But now they're not dying. The number one thing killing them, malaria, stops killing them. Right? So, Bill Gates is not a stupid guy, is he? He knows this. Right? Yeah. So, what's not usually talked about is that Bill Gates spends about twice as much money on birth control education and birth control technologies as he does on curing malaria. Right? That's important. But, if you stop and think about it for a second, like, why? He's spending a lot of this money, but why? Like, what's the difference between somebody dying and somebody not being born? Like, what's the net difference? Yeah?
You can save the resources that would have been spent on them being born, living, and dying.
Sure, but isn't that the same amount of resources as them just not living in the first, like them not taking any more resources because they're dying now? Like, isn't it just one person on Earth? Yeah.
It's hard to care about something you're not born yet.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the issue. Is like we value human life, and so it sounds much better to say like, oh, we should work on birth control and save people, but like the net difference is no difference, right? It's just stable population on Earth, whether you die or whether you don't have a child, like it's the same, right? Does everybody agree that there's no difference there? So, but we have a hard time grasping that. We have a hard time coming to grips with that in our head and saying, well, I guess people need to die. Like, nobody wants to see somebody die. It's terrible. But, like, it's a thing that has to happen. Right? Because if people don't die, then the world's population goes up, and then eventually everybody dies. Right? Because then the Earth can't support that many, and then everybody's going to die off. So people have to die, or just not live in the first place. It's a tough situation, right? So, the human population has grown consistently since the beginning of recorded history. So here's a graph, the world's population through history. So here's the plague. That was the one little dip there, right? There was also, this was a beginning of exponential growth happening here. So you might have seen this happen. You might have seen exponential growth happen right here. Anybody know what happened in like 1100 that controlled the population? Nope. Before that. A war. The Crusades.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
So the Crusades, there was this like, the world's population is gonna blow. Oh, nope, Crusades. And then Black Death. And then we got to about right here. What happened right here?
It's just not about this.
Yeah, what do we call this time? Industrial Revolution, right? And now we're like, holy cow, there's nothing that stops us ever. We have modern medicine, we have like electricity and stuff, we have factories. Boom, right? This is an exponential growth. This is like the very definition of exponential growth here, okay? And this one goes to 2025. We're only at 7 billion. We're right here right now. Only 7 billion, right? And you can see that this is going to continue to sort of take off. Even though we've reduced the rate of population growth significantly. So we're doing an okay job, right? And that is, if we look at the population growth rate, the global population growth rate in 1969, it was roughly 2.2% growth per year. Okay? And you compare that to 2009, there was only 1.1% growth per year. Okay? So we're like, yay, we've done it, right? We've reduced the growth per year, but this is a percentage growth, and that doesn't really mean anything because there was still more people born or more net growth in 2009 than there was in 1969 because 1.1% of like 6.8 billion is still a lot, right? So this is the problem, is that we're in an exponential growth here, and exponential growths are going to continue to grow exponentially even if you reduce the growth per year, right? So where is all this growth happening? Less developed countries have significantly higher birth rates. Okay, so let's look at this. Control. All right, so here is the growth rate in less developed countries and more developed countries. Right, and this is an estimation. 2010. This is our last actual measurement. Right, and these are all extrapolations here. But you can see what we're looking at. We're looking at a stable growth rate in developed countries, and then increasing birth rates in or increasing growth rates rather in less developed countries. And why is that? What? For modern or for developed countries, we're talking about increased contraception and increased focus on careers. What about in less developed countries? Yeah, they do have a higher death rate now. And then what are we doing?
If you have more kids, they're more likely to survive. And especially in like less developed countries, you need more kids to like help run the house and stuff like that.
Sure, but this is growth rate. This isn't even just birth rate. This is growth rate. Yeah.
The death rate's still high, but it's going down because we're providing them with things such as like new shelters and.
Yeah. So modern medicine and our technology, even in these less developed countries, is starting to get there, right? It's starting to be disseminated into these less developed countries, and that doesn't change their birth rates. We're only changing their death rates, right? We're lowering their death rates, and so this extrapolation here is saying if we continue to do this, if we continue to lower the death rates, and maybe by 2050 or whatever this is here, we'll have lowered their death rates to something that is comparable to what we would see in a developed country, right? But if we don't change the birth rates, this is going to be the growth rate, which is a lot, right? So we can say as death rates fall due to GMOs and modern medicine, the growth rate will increase drastically, significantly. So again, like I was talking about, the key here is birth control. The key is convincing people not to have children, but turns out that's not as easy as it sounds. Lots of things like religion and culture are going to prevent that from just kind of taking hold immediately, and so it might take a little while, right? Whereas in more developed countries, we're more used to that. We're more used to contraception. We're more used to birth control, and so we see those steady birth rates. Also, a big deal, big thing now is focus on career. People starting families later in life, right? Having less kids. Right, used to be the common thing to have 3 or 4 kids. Now it's more like 1 or 2 kids, right? You get the occasional people with a person with 3 these days, but for the most part, that's where it stops, right? Whereas that was it was on the low end before. We're moving towards a less a society where we have less kids and we focus more on careers. Okay, we say that as Americans, but we already talked about Japan in our last Consider the Following, right? So Japan's population is declining. Why is Japan's population declining? Yeah.
More young men are less willing to work, people are starting to their careers later in life, and they're not so focused on getting married or having kids or anything.
Yep, it's all about career. Japan has the most career-focused society in the entire world, right? And as a result of that, their birth rates have gone down significantly, right? Is that a bad thing? Are there a lot of people in Japan still? Is Japan small? All these things, yes. So it turns out this is kind of a good thing. And maybe, once the population gets to the point where it's low enough, then it'll shift towards more, having kids and maintaining the population. But for the most part, I don't think there's anybody out there that will argue that Japan is in danger, right? They're not like just going to go extinct or anything like that. They're not going to lose their global foothold. They're just focusing on something else right now, and it's probably something that's very good for society as a whole. So anyways, got to get up on my soapbox real quick. I don't know if you've seen this on my board all year. This is a bumper sticker. It's a takeoff of a bumper sticker that people always used to have in the 90s and 2000s. There was like a little recycling symbol, and it said "Save the Planet" or "Save the Earth" or something like that. And it's garbage. It doesn't mean anything, right? And the reason why it doesn't mean anything is because the Earth is always going to be here for as long as we can foresee, right? Until our sun, burns out, right? The Earth is going to be around. It's just a matter of whether or not we get to be here, right? So if you fast forward 1,000,000 years, I guarantee you 1,000,000 years in the geologic timescale is nothing, right? So the Earth is going to be here and it's going to be fine. There's going to be stuff living on Earth. The questionable thing is, in 1,000,000 years, are there going to be humans here? Probably not, right? If you just consider what's happened in the last 2,000 years, right, and then you extrapolate that to 1,000,000 years, like, probably not going to happen, right? The Earth is going to be here. There are things on Earth. Even if we kill ourselves by doing something terribly stupid like nuclear war all over the Earth, right? There are things that thrive in nuclear fallout, right? There's a bacteria called C. radiodurans that has a chromosome that can self-assemble, so it can live on a gamma emitter, and when it gets hit by gamma radiation, its chromosome blows apart and then reassembles itself like nothing happened, and then it can continue on its life, right? Yeah. So like, there's gonna be stuff here. It's just not us, right? So when you hear somebody say "save the Earth," you're like, no, save ourselves. That's the key, right? So I have one other thing to show you guys, and that is a video